A call for action, saving democracy, a user's manual for every American, details concrete steps you can take to lift democracy. Author and former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party, David Pepper, joins us to discuss his new book. David, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
So you say that the battle for democracy must be fought in all 50 states, red, blue, purple. But so many states are already set in the direction that they go in the politics they hold. Isn't it true that change can really only be made in what might be called a purple state?
That's been the narrative, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We are seeing sort of the heart of my book is that the attack on democracy is largely happening at the state level, much more than, whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene does. It's state representatives that no one knows who are actually doing most of the voter purging, the gerrymandering, the suppression. And that when we decide to only engage in a few states that happen to be swing states for the presidency or the Senate, we are leaving untouched what is essentially the front line of the attack on democracy, all these states. So it's a mistake, and it's been a mistake for a long time. And one reason that we continue to see an attack on democracy go on, even when someone like Donald Trump loses, is because that front line is in all those states that for the most part no one's paying attention to. And we're seeing that play out right now. Tennessee one day, then North Carolina, then Florida, then Ohio, on and on. That's where it's happening. But too often we don't pay attention to those places.
Well, and a lot of people think this issue and this tension that we feel is sort of a product of the Trump years and post-Trump years. You actually write in the book, this goes back way before, a generation before.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is the battle over who should be included in our democracy or whether we should have a full-fledged democracy is the struggle of our nation's history. But the most recent iteration of that battle really came, frankly, after a historic moment in Chicago when Obama won. And ever since Obama won, there's been a fierce backlash that started in 2011. Again, gerrymandering, voter suppression, birtherism. That was all before Trump ever ran for anything. Yeah. But he sort of brought the worst out of some people. But as I say in the books, if he had never run, it would have happened. And if he were somehow locked up tomorrow, which used to be more hypothetical than it is now, it would still continue. They'd still gerrymander. They'd still suppress the vote. They'd still do like that crazy issue 1 in Ohio we had to defeat where they tried to end majority rule here. This is all separate from Trump. And when we make it only about Trump, we're simplifying in a way that actually, in the end, blinds us to what the battle really looks like and how we really win it.
How do you re-engage Americans who really have no interest or think it's hopeless? Because your book literally is a step-by-step guide, lots of things people need to do. How do you get somebody who's not engaged in this issue?
Well, the first thing is I think people have to do a better job. By the way, this goes beyond party. I happen to be the Democratic chair, but I'm talking here to anyone who cares about democracy more broadly. Some people don't see it, and so we need to make sure folks see it. But other people may think, well, democracy is like a 30,000-foot issue. I don't have time to worry about that right now. I'm too worried about things in my life that keep me up at night every single day. And so one thing I think we have to do is make sure people see that the attack on democracy has real-world consequences. After Dobbs, it's whether or not women have a right to choose to determine their own family's fate and future. In many states, what we're seeing is a real collapse in public outcomes. Schools falling apart because the state house is giving away public dollars to for-profit companies that run sort of scam schools while public schools suffer. So when that came about in Kansas, a governor candidate, Laura Kelly, managed to win an election no one thought she could win because of the school issue. So I think the first way to wake people up is to say the democracy battle isn't some 30,000-foot battle that doesn't affect you. It affects your life in so many ways. And many of the things you don't want to happen in life, the reason they're attacking democracy is so those things happen even when the majority of Americans don't agree. And right now, the clearest example of that is what's happening after Dobbs, where women are being denied abortion access all over the country, including for no exceptions like rape or incest or life of the mother.
Well, and a lot of these efforts, it's no, people think about the presidential level. You go on, you write a lot in the book about saying, look, this is about local elections, secretaries of state elections, but you also tell people to lead with values and connect with emotions. What is it that turns people in, and you quote Simon Rosenberg, into information warriors?
Yeah, and this will be a criticism of Democrats. I happen to be one, but Democrats too often are arguing about facts, and they think if they simply are super reasonable and logical, that wins the political argument. And the truth is, most people vote not based on some outcome of a logic game, but based on their gut and their heart. And a lot of times I think Democrats fail to win that battle, that we too often make it about, again, trying to out-reason somebody. And I'll give an example of this, and I guess I can't say this as I normally would on your airwaves, but Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, when she ran for Michigan governor, she didn't say, here's my transportation plan, here's my infrastructure plan. She was in a car, driving down the road, hitting potholes and saying, fix the blank roads. And that's how you connect with people. Make sure they see the issue affects them, but don't present it in some overly planned out way. Connect with them how they would feel if they hit a pothole and ruin their windshield. They'd probably be cursing too. So I think the candidates that connect on that level do a lot better job than people who are just trying to appeal only to people's reason as opposed to their heart or their gut.
David, with just a few seconds left, you say in the book it is go time. Very quickly, give us one example of what somebody should be doing today.
Well, one, we have to run in every single district in America. So start recruiting now. Two, so much of the attack on democracy is coming through the suppression of voters, of the voters who voted in the Obama coalition that are a threat if they're the majority. If you're anywhere in this country and you're involved in, let's say, a homeless shelter or a food bank, you're the mayor of a town, don't just go talk to voters at the local food market and register them. No. Use the footprint of your nonprofit. If it's serving folks food, register them as that you do so. If you're serving people at a health clinic, register people who serve them at a health clinic. There's so many ways we could be interacting with voters, engaging voters, way beyond usual partisan politics. We simply don't do it too often. And that's a key way to lift so many people back in democracy who've been taken out of it. All
right. Well, David Pepper, I have to say this book is certainly not a theoretical treatise. I can tell you that. This is a how-to book with lots of exercises, lots of direction. You can check out Saving Democracy wherever books are sold and online at savedemocracy.us. We'll be right back. Thank you, David.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.